guys, I am Karan Agrawal. Brief intro about me. I scored 99.90 percentile in CAT 2023 and in VARC I scored 99.85 percentile. I am currently pursuing full-time MBA from FMS Delhi, and in this video I am going to be showing you how we approach question from VARC section. So let's just begin with the video. So the passage we have is this one. This passage is from CAT 2023 slot 1. Let's just start with the passage. Okay, first of all, I'll tell you how I approach this reading comprehension question. What I do is I read this passage in paragraphs, and when I complete one paragraph, I make short notes. Means I just jot down some important points which helps me remember what I read in the paragraph, and also this short notes, all if I later encounter somewhere in the question, then I can just revisit these notes instead of reading the entire passage and going through the passage again. So, okay, this is what I do, and while solving the questions, I'll tell you how we approach the questions. Let's just first read this passage. So, what does this passage say? Residents of Lozère, a hilly department in southern France, recite complaints familiar to many rural corners of Europe. In remote hamlets and villages with names such as Le Bécon and Le Bécon View, mayors grumble about a lack of local school, jobs, or phone and internet connections. Okay, so till now I understand that there is a village or something called Lozère, village or town, and there are certain problems which are lack of schools, jobs, phone and internet connections. Okay, farmers of grazing animals add another concern, the return of wolves. Okay, there is second concern that farmers are concerned about the return of wolves. Eradicated from France last century, the predators are gradually creeping back to more forests and hillsides. The wolf must be taken in hand, said an inspiring parliamentarian, Francis Palombi, when pressed by voters in election campaign earlier this summer. Tourists enjoy visiting a wolf park in Lozère, but farmers fret over their livestock and their livelihoods. So this is the first paragraph. So what this first paragraph tells me that there is a town called Lozère, and it has two problems. First is a lack of schools, jobs, and phones connection. So school, job, and other stuff. And second one is a problem faced by farmers, which is return of wolves. All right. And there is some talk about a parliamentarian, which I don't think is really relevant right now. If I encounter some question later, then I'll just reread it first paragraph. And also there are two groups of tourists who are happy about the return of wolves, and farmers who are angry about return of wolves because it is eating their livestock. Okay, now second paragraph. As early as the 9th century, the Royal Office of the Lupari Wolf Catchers was created in France to tackle the predators. These official hunters completed their job in the 1930s when the last wolf disappeared from the mainland. Okay, so in 1930s, wolves were eradicated. Wolves eradicated. Okay, and when the last wolf disappeared, active hunting and improved technology such as rifles in the 19th century, plus the use of poison such as strychnine, later on caused the population collapse. And wolves were eradicated using what? Active hunting, cool, active hunting, and what? Technology, poison, and yes, this was the reasons. Next, we have in the early 1990s, the animals reappeared. Okay, 1990s, return of wolves, return. I'll just like return. They crossed the Alps from Italy, upsetting sheep farmers on the French side of the border. Wolves have since appeared to areas such as Lozère, delighting environmentalists who see the predator's presence as a sign of wider ecological health. Farmers who say the wolves cause the deaths of thousands of sheep and other grazing animals are less cheerful. They grumble that green activists and politically correct urban types have allowed the return of an old enemy. So again, wolves have returned, and again there are two groups which are environmentalists, which are happy because this is a sign of good ecological health, and again farmers are not so happy because their livestock are being killed by the wolves. This concludes the second paragraph. Third paragraph, it says various factors explain the changes of the past few decades. Rural depopulation is a part of the story. Okay, so in the third paragraph, we have factors which attribute to why the wolves have returned. First paragraph says that rural depopulation. In Lozère, for example, farming and a once flourishing mining industry supported a population of over 140,000 residents in the mid 19th century. Today, the department has fewer than 80,000 people, many in its towns. Okay, same rural depopulation, just extended on that. As humans withdrew, forests are expanding. Okay, so second point I can write that humans withdrew and forests grew, right? In France, between 1990 and 2015, forest cover increased by an average of 102,000 hectares each year as more elves were given over to the trees. Same thing. Now, nearly one third of the mainland France is covered by woodland of some sort. Same thing, that forests grew, humans withdrew. The decline of hunting as a sport also means more forests fall quiet. Okay, so third reason I see here is decline of hunting. Decline of hunting. All right. And for in the mid to late 20th century, over 2 million hunters regularly spent winter weekends trampling in woodlands, seeking boars, birds, and other prey. Today, the Federation National des Chasseurs, the national body, claims 1.1 million people hold hunting licenses, though the number of active hunters is probably lower. Okay, so same thing, that hunting has declined. The mostly protected status of the wolf in Europe, hunting them is now forbidden. Okay, so fourth reason I see is protected status to wolves. Protected status, right? The mostly protected status of wolves in Europe, hunting them now is forbidden, other than when occasional culls are sanctioned by the state, plus the efforts of NGO to track and count the animals also contribute to the recovery of wolf populations. Okay, so efforts of NGO can be fifth point, efforts of NGOs, right? This concludes the second last paragraph, and the last paragraph says that as the lupine population, lupine means associated with wolves, right? So here also wolves are being talked about. As the lupine population of Europe spread westwards, with occasional reports of wolves seen closer to urban areas, expect to hear more of clashes between farmers and those who celebrate the predator's return. Farmers' losses are real, but not the only economic story. Tourist venues such as parks where wolves are kept and the animal spread is discussed also generate income and jobs in rural areas. So the return of wolves has certain problems which are going to increase in the future, and again there are two groups that are clashes between farmers and so yes, again farmers who are not very happy versus let's say environmentalists, clashes between them, and here it is also saying that farmers are suffering losses, but this is not the only economic story due to tourists. As tourists visit to see wolves, the revenue is coming from tourists and also jobs are being created. So there are two scenarios again. Farmers are mad because they are suffering losses versus environmentalists who are happy because they sign of good ecological health, and plus increasing tourists are increasing revenue and jobs. So you see, this was the crux of the paragraph. Let's just move on to the questions now. First question we have over here is this one. And what we are going to do in questions is we are not going to select the correct option, but instead we will be focusing on eliminating the wrong options. If we are able to eliminate three options in some way, then automatically the fourth one will be the right answer. I'll show you by solving this question. Which one of the following has not contributed to the growing wolf population in Lozère? Okay, so if you remember, here we wrote that what contributed to wolf population. This were the factors: rural depopulation, humans withdrew, forests grew, decline of hunting, protected status, and efforts of NGOs. Let's see which one we cannot find in the options. A decline in rural population, yes, this was the very first point, so this cannot be the answer. Increase in woodlands and forest cover, yes, second point, forest grew, humans withdrew, cannot be the answer. Shutting down of the royal office of the Lupari. This is not one of the factors, but I'll put this on hold because I'll also want to check option D. Option D says granting of a protected status to wolves in Europe. Yes, this was I think second last point, that wolves were given protected status in Europe. So this is not the answer. This one should be my answer. Fairly easy question. You see, we eliminated the wrong answers and selected the right one. Let's move on to the next question. The inhabitants of Lozère have to grapple with all of the following problems except. Okay, so what were the problems? Problems was lack of schools and jobs, lack of schools, jobs, and telecom. I think phone and internet connections, return of wolves, and farmers were not very happy because of return of wolves. Let's see what are incorrect options. So except they had lack of educational facilities. Correct. So this cannot be the answer. We have to find out which was not the problem. Rural communication infrastructure. Yes, lack of phone and internet connection. So this cannot be the answer. Livestock losses. Yes, farmers were concerned, wolves have returned, and their livestock were dying. This cannot be the answer. Decline in the number of hunting licenses. Right. This might seem like one of the problem, but this is not the direct problem. Decline in the number of hunting licenses resulted in the return of wolves, which resulted in the livestock losses of farmers. So among these four options, these three are direct problems that villagers are dealing with, but D is not the direct option. Uh, this seems like the best to me. So this D would be the answer for this question, and I hope you get why, because this three we have figured out, these are the direct losses. This one is not a direct loss, so this should be the answer for this question. Next one. Which one of the following statements, if true, would weaken the author's claim? Okay, statement true would weaken. First option, we are having migrated out in the last century, wolves are now returning to Lozère. This is correct. Author is saying this, and this is true also, so this would not weaken the author's claim, so this cannot be the answer. Unemployment concerns the residents of Lozère. This has not been mentioned anywhere in the passage. Here we know that there was a mining industry which once flourished. Now it has fewer than 80,000 people because people have moved to towns. But it has not been explained that unemployment is a concern. The concern were lack of schools, return of wolves, but not unemployment. So if this is true, would it weaken the author's claim? I don't think so. It would neither strengthen nor weaken the author's claim because it has not been mentioned anywhere in the passage. So I'll just keep this option on hold right now, not eliminate it. C is wolf attacks on tourists in Lozère are on the rise. Yes, if this is true, this would weaken the author's claim because what the author is claiming that tourists venue are increasing revenue. And also there were something mentioned about tourists, that tourists were happy because of return of wolves here. Tourists enjoy visiting the wolf park. So imagine if this option is true, that wolves attacks on tourists are rising, then why would tourists be happy? Why would tourists visit such venues? So this would not align with author's view, right? So this seems like the answer to this question for me, but I will again check option D right now, which says so I can eliminate option B because of course C is the better option than B. And about D, the old mining sites of Lozère are now being used as grazing pastures for sheep. Again, this has not been mentioned in the passage. It has just been mentioned that mining industry has shrunk, forests are expanding, and forest cover increased. Nothing is said about that mining sites are being used for grazing pastures. So even if it is true, it would neither strengthen nor weaken the passage, just like option B. So I can safely eliminate this option because I have a better option, which is C, and this would be the answer for the question. I hope you get it. And the one important thing to notice here was that question asked if true would weaken. It is very important that you read the question carefully because if you did not read the question carefully, then you will get stuck in this option or this option because this also seemed true. This is also not mentioned in the passage, but the point is it should weaken the author's claim, and only option C is weakening the author's claim. So this is the right answer. Next question. The author presents a possible economic solution of an existing issue facing Lozère that takes into account the divergent and competing interest of. So what groups had divergent and competing interest? On one side there were farmers who were not very happy about return of wolves, versus on the other side there were tourists who were happy about return of wolves. They were environmentalists who were happy because this suggested a good ecological health. We have to find something between this two in the options. First one says that politicians and farmers. No, politicians and farmers did not have divergent interest. Although it is mentioned that one of the parliamentarian, Francis, he said that wolves must be taken in hand, but we cannot say that all the politicians were against farmers. So this option can be eliminated. Second, environmentalists and politicians. Again, environmentalists and politicians were not against each other. There is no evidence to suggest this. C is farmers and environmentalists. Yes, yes, yes. This is my answer because farmers were against environmentalists, and this has been talked about multiple times in the passage. And the tourist environmentalists, no, they were not against each other. Actually, they were in sync with each other because tourists also wanted return of wolves and environmentalists also wanted return of wolves. So this is a very easy question, and there should be no problem in this one. That the answer is option C. And I think we are done with all the four questions. So if you see that all of these four questions were quite easy and could have been done if we just focus on eliminating the three options rather than selecting the correct one. Here, if we wanted to select the correct one, then we might have been stuck in option B and option D. And since we went by the approach of eliminating, we were able to figure out that C is the correct answer. And fourth one was also easy one. So overall, this was an easy passage. Passage was easy to read. Passage was easy to take notes of, and questions were also easy. So overall, all I think four of the four questions were to be attempted in the exam. So this was all for this question, and I hope you get something from this video and you like this video. If you have any concern, then please do comment. And if you find this video helpful, please like and share with your friends. That's all from my side. Thank you.